Welcome back to the Stretch the Floor podcast. I'm Matthew here, as always, with Venushan. And last week we did our best of our top 10 NBA players of the 2010s. That's hard to say. This year we're doing our top 10 all time. So this one is a little bit more out of our comfort zone because obviously we were alive during the 2010s and we watched basketball during the 2010s, but we didn't get a chance to see Bill Russell. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to see Wilt and some of these guys, but we see the impact that they've had on the league that still lasts to this day. So I still think we can have an interesting take on what the top 10 all time is. So we will let's get right into that. Our format, as always, is that you give me your 10, 9, 8 first. So let's let's hear it.
So, like you just mentioned them, and you said we didn't see them live,
Yeah.
but they have to make the top 10 list. So I just put them in at the end. I have
Okay.
Wilt Chamberlain at 10.
Okay.
I have Bill Russell at 9. And then my first actual kind of pick, that's Tim Duncan at 8.
Interesting. Okay. Let's talk about Tim Duncan because I have him at number. Okay, fine. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'll give you mine. I'm a little confused right now. Okay, so my number 10 is Tim Duncan, and then my 9 is Shaq, and my 8 is Kobe.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. So, first off, before we get into that, I like the strategy of having the guys that we didn't see towards the end because we can't pretend to have some interesting opinion on them because we didn't see them play. For me, it's like how dare I move them down on my list? Like I feel like I'm doing something blasphemous by not having them up there. So that's kind of how I went about it. But I do like how you kind of just like put the guys that you can talk more comfortably about near the top. But first, let's talk about, I guess, Tim Duncan, because he's the one that we share between our three guys. We talked about him last week in our top 10 2010s. I had him in there because I have so much respect for him and you didn't, but you have I don't want to say he's a lock for everyone's top 10 list, but he's a lock for your top 12 all time, no matter what. So over the course of his career, he was 19 a game, 10.8 rebounds a game, 3 assists, 2.2 blocks. But the stats don't really tell the full story on him. He won 5 championships.
Yeah, and that's not just his words. Like if he has a 1997-98 Rookie of the Year, 1997-98 Sports News Rookie of the Year, 1999 Finals MVP, 2000 Game All-Star MVP, 2021-2022, 2001-02 MVP, 2003 Finals MVP, then 2002-2003 MVP. So he has back-to-back MVPs right there. And then he has 2005 Finals MVP. And then he has 2014-2015 Team of the Year. And then he also obviously made the recent All-75, Top 75 NBA anniversary thing. And then he was an All-Star 15 times from 1998 to 2015. He missed 2 years, 2012 and 2014. But essentially over 17 years, he made it 15 out of 17.
Insane.
And he has 5 championships, 99, 03, 05, 07, and then 2014. And then every year in between that, he made the playoffs. And then he has 23 weekly awards, like 10 monthly awards. He has 31 all-league awards. So that includes all defensive and all NBA. And then he made MVP shares from like all the way from 1997 to 2014. And he won 2 MVPs. So he has a lot of awards, and everyone here obviously has a lot of awards, but it's just to show like these guys were just a different echelon of players compared to like, the current great players that we have, such as like a Kawhi Leonard or something, because they just have the awards are just like so much more. And like he really takes a unique player to even like crack contention for this list. And I just wanted to show that with Tim Duncan, who we have low, because like that's how good you have to be. And he would be potentially higher and over the guys like Shaq and Kobe if he just got that jump hook in the year that they lost to the Miami Heat, or if Ray Allen just missed that 3, then he goes 6-0 in the finals. And I guarantee you more people, including myself, probably have him higher. But it shows you how impactful one shot in the finals could be too. Because man, he's number 8. He has all those awards. He's averaged 19 and 10 throughout his career. He was an MVP candidate for over 15 years. He was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate for over 15 years. He's the greatest power forward of all time. And he's just so good.
Yeah, it's the 15 years is like the crazy part. Just the longevity is really, really, like you said, like all those all those accolades that he racked up, it was not over like a 3 to 4 to 5 year span. It was truly over his entire career, which is very unique, which is pretty unique, and that's a really good way to describe him.
Yeah, and the one thing you always have to mention with Tim Duncan is Greg Popovich, and then like that just success every year, 50 wins every year, playoffs. Take every year 50 wins. Like that's so crazy. Like there's franchises that have like less 50 win seasons than Tim Duncan. NBA franchises. Like this guy is just that guy. Like we talk about winning, and like the guy who I have at number 9 is like the best winner of all time, Bill Russell. But this guy did it against 30 teams. He did it in an actual league. Like there was other 7-foot guys.
Yeah.
There's other 2 guys that he played against 3 guys on this list. He played against LeBron. He played against Kobe. He played against MJ actually, and he played against Shaq. Like he played against all these guys. It's like it's not like he went against bums. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was always winning 50 games. Always a championship contender. Always an MVP. Always a defensive player of the year. Just like he was always like he was always like at least like right there on the cusp of like breaking out, getting the championship, breaking out, getting the MVP, defensive player. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just doing that for 15 years consistently. Like we talk about Chris Paul and his consistency. Like he still got hurt come like playoffs and stuff. Tim Duncan just didn't, and he's just one of the best regimes for a big man to follow, and he definitely should be followed, like his diet, his lifestyle, and everything like that. Because if people could emulate this type of health, they could have way bigger careers.
Yeah, that's well said. I don't really have too much else to add on to that. Let's move on to, so you had Bill Russell at number 9. I have him higher on my list for the reasons that we just talked about, but I mean,
probably have him 7, no?
I have him even higher than that, actually.
Okay.
We'll get into that though. So like you said, the ultimate winner, 11-time champion, 5-time MVP, and then just more and more accolades that we don't like, 3-time first team, 8-time second team, all defensive. We don't really need to get into all that, but really the one stat is the 11 championships.
Yeah, Bill Russell like invented the block. He invented the dunk. Like it was just so long ago that like I just have him on the list because like he invented those stuff and he just won so much. But he was really more of like a pioneer basketball than really like an all-time great player.
Yeah,
like the league of play and everything was different, and like he just won everything. But also like his whole team was all MVP, like Hall of Famers. like every year that team was Hall of Famers. But man, he did like he was also like he broke through like so much like social barriers and all that stuff too. So like he's definitely a legend of the game. Should be retired. Like Boston Celtics legend, NBA legend, and that's why he has the Finals MVP named after him, because he is the best winner of all time.
Yep. And like we said earlier, it's unfortunate, but we obviously didn't get a chance to see him. So beyond his 11 championships and some of the things, the impact and the social barriers that he had to break through, we don't really know too much about him in his game. So let's just move on. You have Wilt number 8.
Yeah, and then he's like the complete opposite of Baressa. He's in the same time, and instead of going for like team success, actually passing the ball, getting like championships and stuff like that, he said, man, let me just score as much as I can, because that's the way of basketball, scoring. It's just 2 different philosophies, which side of the coin you're on. I think Bill Russell's coin is better. That's why I have him high. And that's why I have Will at 10. But both those guys should be next to each other. Like if you have them at 4 or 5, if you have them at 6, 7, they should be next to each other, because they're just 2 different sides of a coin.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, 4 MVPs. He only won the 2 championships. He got the 1 Finals MVP. But like whenever there's a crazy record these days that's broken, it's like, oh, he's the first
excluding Will Chamberlain.
Exactly. Excluding Will Chamberlain. Like you have to put an asterisk beside every award. So when you're talking about pure stats and everything like that. But even when you see like old footage of him, he looks kind of like Giannis. Like he's this tall, like crazy athletic guy. Like
fast.
I feel like he could definitely still do this in the league today. Maybe not to this extent, but he could play in the league today.
The funniest thing was I just remember when James Harden had scoring all those 30-point games in a row. It was like James Harden has the most 30-point games in a row, like 30, right? It was a crazy number, like where everyone was like, the whole league was praising him and stuff. And then it said, excluding Will Chamberlain, like 104. It was like just crazy amount, man. Like he was just the best scorer of all time. It's just came out of ease for him. But he didn't have the winning success, and that's why he's below Bill Russell. Yeah. Simple as that. Yeah.
Simple as that. Okay, so I had Kobe and Shaq coming up next. You obviously have higher. Do you want to get in?
Let's do Shaq next, because I have Shaq at 7.
Okay, and I had Shaq at
9.
9. So okay,
Yeah.
let's do Shaq. So
Greatest peak.
Shaq, yeah.
Simple as that. When we're talking about 3-year peak, he's better than any single player here. He had the greatest 3-year peak. But unfortunately, unlike Tim Duncan, unlike Kobe Bryant, unlike Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Shaq didn't care about longevity. He ate a lot. He partied a lot. He made rap music. He was a businessman. He invested in stocks. He listened to went to stock parties and stuff like that. He enjoyed life. He probably the biggest and best personality outside the league.
Yeah.
I mean, outside the court. But at the end of the day, like Kobe Bryant said, if Shaq trained as hard as him, he would be the greatest player of all time. But that 3-year peak is going to keep him in everyone's top 10 list when he won 3 straight championships. Okay, let's look at this 3-year peak. So that was 2000. He averaged 28.7, 27.2 the next year, and 27.5 the next year. In those 3 years, he won Finals MVP and MVP.
Yeah.
Like he was scoring 27.5, winning Finals MVP, MVP.
Yeah.
Like that was just the best 3-year peak of all time. And it's not like his career was bad after that. He was still an MVP candidate with Orlando. He was still beating Michael Jordan and going, to the finals with Orlando. Then he was having those all-star appearances after, and even a championship with Miami as a second option. So he still had a solid career after that, but it just wasn't at the MVP peak for 15 years, like a Duncan or a Kobe or LeBron or MJ. It was just a 3-year burst that literally no one's touched since.
Yeah, you're right. Those 3 years, I don't want to say best 3 years of all time, but maybe the best 3 years of all time. Literally Finals MVP and MVP in all 3 seasons. But like you said, Shaq was partying, he was eating, he was doing all these other ventures outside off the court. It's paying off now because he's still one of the faces of the NBA if you're just looking at the league as a whole. So maybe that was his plan. Maybe that was his long-term business plan. But if we're talking on the court, he is just slightly edged out by Kobe for me for that reason.
Work ethic,
and the work ethic and everything like that. But Shaq is the most dominant player of all time, the most physically dominant player of all time. And you pretty much summed it up perfectly there. Best peak of all time, and just didn't have the longevity that guys like Tim Duncan had.
And he still had a great longevity. People are gonna he's no Kawhi Leonard who's just did it for 2-3 years, right? He actually his 8 seasons in Lakers, it was 27, 11.8. That was crazy, 3.1 assists. And in that 8 season, he has 3 championships and another finals appearance, which was a loss against the Detroit Pistons. And the 4 years in Orlando was 27.2, 12.5, 2.4 assists. And that was also had a finals appearance, which was a loss to Hakeem Olajuwon.
Yeah.
And then his overall career was still amazing at 23.7 and 10.9. One of the people that should have got 30,000 points, but he missed too much free throws. He said that was his biggest regret, because if he makes more free throws, he probably has 1 or 2 more championships and probably number one, maybe. Talking about Shaq has 2 more championships and way more points. Yeah. So he should have been number 1, but man, falling to number he was 9 on your list, he was 8 on my list or 7 on my list. It just shows we can't dig on Shaq too much because he still accomplished so much. And you can't say say if Shaq put those hours in the gym, would his body have held up?
Maybe not,
right?
Maybe not.
So maybe this worked out the best case scenario, and I think Shaq should be happy with his career. I think at the end of the day, when you look at his career, anyone would be happy with that career. 4 championships, top 10 all time. Anyone would be happy with that.
I think so. So I think do you have Kobe one spot ahead of him?
Or? Yeah, I have Kobe at 6.
So we'll talk about Kobe because I think you have to talk about them kind of in the same breath.
Yeah.
5 championships. He won 2 on his own after those 3 with Shaq, and he put in the work and he had the longevity that Shaq didn't. Unfortunately, injuries obviously caught up to him at the end of his career, but there's just one of the greatest scorers and one of the greatest winners of all time.
Yeah, my favorite player of all time. So it's hard to talk about him objectively, but man, it's crazy that he only has 1 MVP. I think we gotta say that. Steve Nash is probably top 3 all-time favorite player for both of us because he's Canadian. But man, when Kobe was averaging 35.4 and 31.6, and Steve Nash is averaging like 16 and 11, gets it over him. That was kind of political, I would say the least. But 5 championships, 2 finals losses, so 5-2 in the finals.
Yep.
The greatest clutch shooter of all time.
Yep.
Person who worked probably the hardest in the whole NBA.
Mm-hmm.
The most fun player to watch. Like when he was young, he was slamming over everyone, winning the dunk contest, doing all that crazy stuff. And then when he was older, he was, just doing that post fade, threes, adapting his game. He's just someone who worked the hardest. And when he was here still, he was still giving the league challenges. He gave the Jokic challenge, like, yo, Jokic, go win MVP. Giannis, go win MVP. Giannis, you want the MVP? Go win a championship. So like he was giving those guys challenges and telling them, motivating the young league. He was doing work with the WNBA, and he was going to do more work with them, plan to make that league grow as well. He had the whole basketball film, which won an Oscar, which was amazing to see as well.
Mm-hmm.
He's just Kobe Bryant, man. There's a reason when we shoot a scrunched up paper ball, we say Kobe. He's iconic. He's a legend with the basketball, and he should be in everyone's top 10. And like the lowest you can have him is like 7-8. Like that's the lowest we can have him. I usually have him here because he's my favorite player of all time. So I objectively rank him harder because I know he's my favorite. So I try to rank him harder. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Only player to have 2 numbers retired. And
same organization.
Same organization. That's what I mean. Two numbers retired, same organization, and would make the Hall of Fame with either one, like both of them. 2 separate Hall of Fame careers with 2 different numbers, and like insane. Crazy. Okay, so let's move on to the next. So you had Shaq at 7 and Kobe at 6.
Yeah.
Who's
so my
5th?
top 5. So my 5 is synonymous with my 4. I think they both have to be next to each other. That's Bird at 5 and Magic at 4.
Yeah. Okay, so I have Bird at 7, I have Magic at 6, and then I have Wilt at 5.
And Bill at 4.
And Bill at 4. So again, these Wilt and Bill are so like legendary and so iconic that I just kind of like put them in their spots that I see everyone else. They're like, oh, Bill Russell can't drop past 4. I'm like, who am I to move him past 4? So that's where I put them. But again, I totally agree that Larry Bird and Magic Johnson have to be beside
next to each other.
So because they formed one of the most iconic eras in basketball, the Bird, Magic, Celtics, Lakers era.
Yeah, and it's just like nice to see like the 3 2000 stars.
Yeah,
Duncan, Shaq, Kobe. They always have to be next to each other. Then you have the 2 pioneers of basketball, Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. You can have them anywhere, but they have to be next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the greatest rivalry in basketball, stemming back to the college days, into the NBA, into the 2 biggest organizations with the Lakers and Celtics, and that's Magic and Larry Bird, and they always have to be next to each other. Mm-hmm. And like those pairing in that trio, like you can have them swapped around. You have Kobe 4, 5, 6, whatever. I feel like that's all okay. They just all have to be together. Like that trio has to be together. Duo have to be together. And then the top 3, I think it's solidified. 1, 2, 3. You could argue amongst those 3, but 1, 2, 3 is solidified. So that's how everyone's top 10 should be. And let's just get right into the 2-1 duo that we haven't talked about, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
Let's start with Larry Bird because we both have him 1 spot lower than Magic. And man, just shooting, defense, playmaking out of the small forward position.
Yeah.
While also being apparently the best trash talker in the league and the best teammate, where, Kevin Mchale, Robert Parrish always talk about how good of a teammate he was, even though, he wasn't like a playmaker or a point guard like Magic Johnson. He just did everything that needed to win. Like he'll get in, he'll get in for a charge. He'll throw a punch in the 80s, stuff like that. And he just defined the Boston Celtics and like their hard-nosed ruggedness. And if he never had those back injuries, we're probably talking about the GOAT, the last player to win 3 MVPs in a row. And he was just that guy. He was so good. And sadly for him, the injuries have dropped him all the way down to 6th all time. That's so badly the injuries were. Actually, fifth. That's where I have him. Yeah. So
Yeah.
man, he was just that guy. He was on pace to be by far the best player of all time, and then injuries dropped him to fifth. But
yep,
his career was incredible to say the least.
Yeah, the accolades speak for themselves. Three-time champion, 2-time Finals MVP, but maybe the best passer of all time. Best like
at the small forward.
At the small forward position, kind of you talk about creating a new prototype for players, the point forward.
Yeah.
When you talk about the point forward, Larry Bird is the pioneer of that. And guys like LeBron James, guys like Luka, guys like even like Kevin Durant, these types of players who are small forwards, but they have the ball all the time and they're making things happen. It's really all thanks to him kind of blazing that path. And yeah, you said everything. It's the best rivalry in basketball history. And I wish we were around to see that era, because it must have been insane. But yeah, we can still appreciate the effects of that they had on the game, because we see it now with all these new guys.
Yeah, like bigs always talk about like Magic Johnson being their idol to kind of get the ball moving and stuff, but the shooting in bigs, like people don't talk about him, but Larry Bird, was a big idol to them, right?
Yeah,
to be able to 6'10" and be able to shoot like that while also grabbing 10 rebounds and 5 assists. Like this guy was doing it all, and having 2 steals essentially his whole career, like crazy.
Yeah. Insane. So interesting
defense, everything.
Yeah, literally the whole package, not one thing to detract from him. So interestingly enough, we both have Magic over one spot over him, and what's your rationale behind that?
The literal reason I have Magic Johnson higher is rings. He just has the 5 rings, just 2 little rings extra, just gets him the Finals MVP and all that stuff, and just moves him up to that one spot higher. But he also had Kareem, the guy that we have still to talk about. So that's why, he's not too high, but yeah, just the 2 extra MVPs got a little finals.
Yeah.
Championships got
championships. Wait, if you really wanted, technically I would say that they're tied. Like you want to call it A and B, whatever, wherever you have them. If you have them at 6, 7, you have them at 4, 5, whatever, they're A and B. But when it's that close, 2 more rings, you're talking all time tiebreaker, whatever. But like you said, we still have yet to talk about Kareem. So why don't we get into our top 3? What is the order of your top 3?
I have Kareem at 3.
Yeah.
LeBron at 2, and MJ at 1.
Same. And I think, you know what? I've seen different permutations of this all over the place. If you have Kareem at 1, and you can put, not at 1, at 2. I mean, you can put together an argument for having Kareem over LeBron just based on being the all-time leading scorer and all that. But personally, we saw LeBron and we've seen what he continues to do to this day. So that is why I have him at number 2. But I mean, in my opinion, there's no other top 3 in some order than
those 3:
MJ, LeBron, Kareem.
Yeah. So we'll talk about Kareem because he's probably going to be the least that we watched. Yeah. And at the end of the day, this guy was just the all-time scorer. He's the best scorer of all time. Just could score at will, had the unguardable move, post hook. Somehow that wasn't a huge impact in the league though. Like not everyone started shooting post hooks. That was pretty surprising. Guess it was a really hard shot for 7-footers to make, and that was the reason why. But he could make it, and he was just literally unguardable. And there's nothing else to say. Like he won championships. He has 6. He has the most accolades for an NBA player, but he just didn't have the dominance that the first 2 had. But if you say Kareem's 1 and you watch Kareem and you're like 85-year-olds listen to our podcast, like, okay, like we can't really debate with you. We just didn't watch him. So like these guys are all like 1A, 1B, 1Cs. Like they're really hard to, it's all personal preference. So yeah, if you're 85 and Kareem was your hero, then yeah, go ahead, put him at 1.
Hey, if you're 25 and Kareem is your hero, go ahead, put him at 1. But 6-time, like you said, 6-time champion. And the crazy thing is we talk about LeBron longevity. He's doing this many years.
Oh yeah.
And he is like probably gonna fall short of the all-time scoring.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not, but like it's crazy that with that amount of longevity, it's going to be hard for him to reach that amount. So when you talk about longevity, like Kareem should actually come first in the conversation over LeBron.
Yeah. The only difference is like we people just discredit Kareem because he's like, oh man, he was just 7 foot, and they just threw him the ball and he went super slow mo and did that shot. But like, hey, if you can't block it, you can't block it.
Yeah.
So that's up to him. We just got to give credit, man. Like, if we're talking about the best shot ever, I know people are gonna say Steph Curry 3, you know, blah blah blah, but it's Kareem shot, hook shot. It's the best ever. It's the best signature move. Better than the dream shake. Better than the one leg fadeaway. Better than Jordan's fadeaway, Kobe's fadeaway, LeBron's tomahawk dunk, whatever. Like, it's better than all that. It's the best move of all time.
Yeah, and like you said, it didn't become like have an impact on other players in the league, mainly because
it's too hard.
You can't do it. You're not 7 feet. Like, maybe Giannis could probably pull it off if he tried, but and Kevin Durant probably could. But it's like saying, oh yeah, Kevin Durant's pull up and shoot over your three is like gonna have a huge impact on the league, because like only Kevin Durant can do that, right?
Do
like,
it. Yeah.
No one in the world other than him can do that. So that's kind of how that goes. Steph Curry, like, you can try. Trae Young tries to do that kind of stuff, and anyway. So our 1-2, we're both in agreement. We've always been on this consistently that MJ is our one, and that is not because of the Last Dance. We were saying that pre-Last Dance. So there's no six, like, it just comes down to the rings. Like, that's kind of it. Like, LeBron, his career is not over. That's the one thing he has going for him, and the fact that both of us already have him at 2 over Kareem, and that his career is not even close to over it. I mean, it's closer to over than not, but I wouldn't rule out him getting another ring.
Yeah.
So
I think this is all it comes down to. There's a decade where LeBron was going to make the finals no matter what, right?
Yeah.
But there's just 6 years where Michael Jordan was going to win the ring no matter what. And there's never been a LeBron year where you're like, oh, LeBron's won the ring no matter what. Because there was that little peak where we thought it was going to happen, but then Dirk Nowitzki upset him. And I think forever that Dirk Nowitzki loss is just always going to have at number 2. Maybe if he gets the all-time scoring and gets 2 more rings, then he can maybe sway me. But I think that Dirk Nowitzki loss and that just like crack in his armor where it's like, oh, LeBron's beatable, which MJ just doesn't have, is just always going to have LeBron at 2.
That probably is what does it. And when I debate with people who have LeBron 1, they bring up, MJ's undefeated in the finals, but how many finals did LeBron get to? Yeah, he lost those finals, but it's because he dragged teams that weren't championship caliber teams to the finals, right? And I do agree. I do agree with that point, to a point though. When you're the overwhelming favorite, when you're the favorite in that 2011 year, you don't lose like that. Like you said, there's a chink in the armor. Yeah, the first Cavs year when he lost, I'm not putting that loss on LeBron, right? Yeah. But that 11 year against the Mavs, that is something that you can really bring up to detract from it. But
and then people are always going to type this out like, why are you comparing 1 year over 40 years of career, like 20 years of MJ's and 20 years of LeBron's, why not talk about MJ's Wizards career? Because MJ's Wizards career didn't happen. Like just imagine that didn't happen, right? Like that, just because like it doesn't really add or hurt MJ's career because it was so far past his prime and so fast past like his playing time. So it just doesn't happen. That's why no one talks about it. And we're talking about it because these are like 2 perfect careers. And there's just one tiny, like 2 periods instead of 1 period, like grammatical error type thing. And then like that's just all it takes to make that into the 1B versus the 1A.
Yeah. I will say though that there are some people who say no matter what happens, MJ is number 1, right? I'm leaving the door open to crack. Like LeBron, his career is not over. If he wins 1 more chip, we can argue. If he wins 2 more,
I think it's an actual debate. If he gets 2 more and the all-time points, then I would have him over. Yeah. But he's also seems more human nowadays than the robot LeBron. We're to the point where like, oh man, do we think he's gonna play that Raptors game where he has the back-to-back? I mean, me and you are thinking that question. So we got to see how it goes. But being 2 when your career is not over is amazing.
Yeah, for sure. And it's going to be, we brought this up earlier, but it's going to be interesting to see when that documentary drops, when LeBron's 50, 55, if he's still not playing at that age, when that documentary drops, to see like if that changes some people's opinions and like, and everything like that. Cause it does feel like a lot of people who didn't really have an opinion on the MJ LeBron debate have one after watching the Last Dance. So it's going to be interesting to see what LeBron's counter to that is. Yeah.
And the 2 players I want to shout out who would have made this list if it wasn't for like legacy of Wilt and thing is Kevin Durant would have been my number 9. And Steph Curry would have been my number 10.
Yeah.
But those plays are going to make this debate even harder the next time we do this in like 5 years, 6 years times. Because man, they're having great careers still. So it's going to be tough.
That's the thing. Like, I don't know if top 10 when those two guys retire, I don't know if top 10 is going to be enough to do justice. Like you're going to have to kick Tim Duncan off.
Oh, never.
Like
I'm one of the few people that watched Tim Duncan live, and man, I don't know. It's gonna be hard for me to dunk them off. I think I'm just gonna have a preface and say, these two players are great, and I consider them the pioneers of basketball, but they're not top 10. And I'm gonna say that for Wilt and Bill Russell.
Yeah. I mean, some people have Bill Russell like number 1. People who are
like 105.
105, and but I don't have any counter argument to that whatsoever. But once if we do another top 10 all-time list in 10 years when those two guys are retired, it's going to be very, very interesting to see. And even a guy like, I don't know, like
Giannis,
right?
Maybe, you never know.
You never know. He's got to start racking up some more rings though. But so that pretty much does it, I think, for our top 10 all-time list. Other than those two guys, like, are there any guys who are retired that are you feel like are snubs that we didn't talk about today?
I think the clear number 11 is Hakeem Olajuwon.
Yeah.
I think if we both agree to that, like, clear number 11 is Hakeem. And then the two current players that are playing that we think are going to be on this list is Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. And it just sucks for Hakeem because we're going to keep him at number 11.
We're going to keep him there. And unfortunately, when those, but I agree. That's the one that comes to mind. Hakeem, number 11. Anyway, that does it for our top 10 all time. Thank you everyone for listening to this episode. We'll be back next week to talk some more basketball. In the meantime, check us out at Stretch the Floor Podcast, and check us out on Instagram, and check us out on YouTube at STF Clips for all the best clips from the podcast. In the meantime, subscribe to us on YouTube or on subscribe to us on the podcast feed, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, because it all really helps with the algorithm. I think I just have Christmas on my mind because this episode is going to be released on Christmas. So if you're listening to this episode on Christmas, thank you for being such a loyal fan. And thank you for supporting us. So Merry Christmas if you're listening on Christmas. Anyway, thank you. We'll be back next week.
Easy.